So before we finish up with the episode, we wanted to do our order of the 10 films that were nominated for Best Picture. We have seen them all, with the exception of you haven't seen one, so that's going to be your number 10, I assume. But yeah, we just wanted to sort of go through really quickly and just give our perspectives on the films that are nominated. So, Jesse, why don't you start us off with your number 10?
Well, I wouldn't say it's number 10, only because it's not being in consideration for me.
There you go.
So my non-considered item is Licorice Pizza. I think that after all of the stuff that we saw, that I saw on Twitter, and just like those scenes where there's just that like completely unnecessary racist comedy against Asian people, I just said to myself, you know what? I don't need to do this to myself for a film I wasn't that excited to see anyways.
Sure.
And I know that there were a lot of people who were saying that, like, oh, this is something that that happens all the time, and there were Asian people who were defending it, and it's like, yeah, but it doesn't add anything, and it makes me feel bad as an Asian person.
Right.
So I don't need to see it.
Right.
And you do what you want to do, but I'm not going to do that.
That's right. That's fair.
So that is that's
your 10.
My number 10, but it also does get my award, the Breakfast at Tiffany's award for most unnecessarily racist performance in a movie this year.
So I did see it, and those two scenes could have been removed from the movie, and you would not have noticed. They played no role at all in character, plot, anything. So
with most racism in most films.
Yeah, very, very, very ridiculous that it's even in there. But
yes. All right.
So my number 10.
Yes.
So we're gonna go serpentine with this.
So
my number 10 is Don't Look Up.
Really?
Yes. The more I've thought about that film, or actually I should say, the further we've gotten away from that film, the less I've thought about it. None of the characters were interesting. Mm-hmm. There was no discernible plot in that movie. It is incredibly depressing and preaching to the choir. Like, yes, I am very well aware that we are all doomed. I got it.
Yeah.
Understood. And that movie, A, did not make me feel any better or any kind of way about it that I don't already feel.
Right.
And B, it's not going to change anybody's mind. And I'm not sure, it wasn't entertaining. There were a few funny moments, but that was it.
You don't think that there's going to be any like right-wing Republicans who are out there and they watch the film not knowing what it's about, and then they go to the end of the film and they go, oh my gosh.
No.
It was global warming the whole time.
Not at all. Not a one. All right. And number 9 for me was a movie that we just finished watching last night, Belfast. It is a film that is beautifully shot, has some lovely performances, very pretty people in the film, really, really cute kid in the lead role, but seemed in many ways to be about a vibe and not really like driven by much of a story, and it was just kind of a little helter-skelter all over the place, so I wasn't that into it.
Belfast, more like Bell Slow. Sorry, it was my number 9 also. Okay.
Like, so you realize we're recording this, right? And you want to go with that? All right. Okay.
So also my number 9 for similar reasons. Very beautifully shot, but it kind of felt like one of those films where they were like, look, it's black and white. We have to nominate it.
Yeah, it was very Oscar baity, for sure.
Yeah.
What's your number 8?
Oh, number 8 for me was West Side Story.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a surprise, but okay.
I mean, I'm not like I've never seen West Side Story as a play, the original, like as a performance.
Yeah. Or have you seen the original movie from 51?
Oh. No, I'm not as into theater, I think, musical theater, as you think that I am. I just have like several musicals that I really like to listen to a lot. Okay. Not that I listen to a lot of musicals.
Fair enough. Okay. You're very dedicated on a few rather than generally interested in a broad array.
Right. Like I don't watch all of NBC sitcoms. I just watch Frasier every single day before I go to sleep.
That's fair.
So West Side Story was fine and beautiful and Oscar baity in that same way. And I think that it's not going to be something I'm going to want to come back and watch probably ever.
Really? Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
For me, number 8 was King Richard. Shout out Ray Green, a classmate of mine and guy I've worked with on a couple films in the past. He directed this. Good performance by Will Smith. Again, there's like no stakes at all in this film. It's like, we know that they go on to become the most successful tennis players in the history of tennis.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, is it really gonna are they gonna win this tournament or whatever? It's like, who cares, man? They're so rich.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate it from a narrative perspective of like a biopic and like what they might have gone through at a certain time in their life and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's entertaining to watch. It was a fun watch.
Mm-hmm.
Will Smith is doing some stuff. I wasn't that high on his performance. Like, I would not give him Best Actor, even though he's almost guaranteed to win it.
Right.
Just because sometimes it seemed like he was doing like an Eddie Murphy impersonation at times.
Do you think so?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, but look, I mean, I think it was a fun watch, and I enjoyed it, but it's not that memorable. I don't know that I would come back to it. The reason I put it ahead of Belfast is because this is something that I would watch again before I would watch Belfast again.
Okay.
And then number 7 for me is Nightmare Alley.
Okay.
So love the production design, love the cinematography. So definitely got a style to it. I think the back half of the film, so as you talked about, it's kind of divided into 2 sections. The back half really worked for me, but the opening hour and a half or so is just very slow, and gives me the icky heebie-jeebies with some of that stuff. So
Okay.
I a lot to appreciate there, just not a movie I would really...
We have a very different list.
Yeah, of course you do.
All right, where am I going?
Number 7.
I'm going with number 7. Number 7 for me was Coda.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, I mean, a nice film. Some of the stuff that was brought up about like it centering ableist viewpoints, definitely. When I thought about it and really went back and revisited it, it's very similar to a lot of times when you have screenplays that are written by white people about racism or whatever, and it centers like the white heroes. It sort of I can see that argument a lot more clearly now that it's been pointed out. I think that everybody had the best of intentions, but knowing the history of the film and that it was not written by any actually deaf people,
right?
I think that it makes a lot of sense. So wonderfully acted, very sweet story, but I think that for me, if I want something to like that, then it has to be really a lot more well thought out in terms of just the general plot and drive of the story. Yeah,
so they it seemed like that movie, they developed the plot to answer the questions necessary to move the story forward,
right?
But they didn't characterize it with the ways those specific individuals interact with the world in real life, and so it comes across to there was we can link the the Twitter thread that you're talking about,
right?
But it comes across to people in the deaf community, at least in part, as being unrealistic or condescending of how they actually experience their life. So
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Number 6.
Number 6 for me was Don't Look Up.
Okay.
So not like super high on my list, right? I get it that it's probably should be lower on my list, but I also like kind of poppy, films generally.
Sure.
And it's one that I might watch again at some point. I don't know. I like Leo, and I like Jennifer Lawrence, and
I like them too. I wish they were doing something in that movie.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lawrence, unfortunately, is given terrible bangs and the same character she's had in the last 6 movies.
Listen here, I had terrible bangs like that earlier.
Just saying, like she's a wonderful actress and could have been given a lot more to do other than just like look annoyed for the whole film.
No, it's true. I mean, and they got a lot of really big names with a lot of really big talent, and probably did not utilize them to their fullest.
That being said, it is one of the films. So Cate Blanchett is in that as well as in Nightmare Alley. Ron Perlman is in that as well as in Nightmare Alley.
Ron Perlman is in that?
Yeah, he plays the general in there. So we have a couple people who show up multiple times in these movies.
Right. Well, your turn, I guess, right?
Yep. Oh, Bradley Cooper was in Nightmare Alley and is also in my number 6, Licorice Pizza. He plays the producer John Peters, who was dating Barbra Streisand at the time.
Yep.
And I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I think that he's one of my favorite directors. One of.
Yeah.
And he's like, I could do a class on his films by and large. This one, however, has all of his immense talent and brilliant visual expertise and poetic nature of storytelling and all that good stuff. But it's like he took all that talent and just threw it at a malformed skeleton. Like there's no plot in that film. It is just a series of escapades and events for these these 2 main characters and the people that they bring into their lives and stuff.
Right.
And so while these vignettes are interesting and funny at times, it just doesn't coalesce as like a larger point of view or a larger perspective on anything. It doesn't get into the same level of depth, or it doesn't have the same sort of young auteur angst as a lot of his early films. And so I felt this kind of went nowhere for me. I would certainly watch it again. There are beautiful elements into it, in it. It reminded me a bit of one of my favorite films of his, which is Punch Drunk Love. There's that sort of connection between these two characters that is presented in this dreamlike and sort of wonderful, romanticized state. So enjoyed those elements, but all in all, kind of into things.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
And then number 5 for me was Coda.
Okay.
So
our middles are looking very similar.
Yeah, and the reason I put Coda in there is I thought that the storyline was fine. Was interesting and enjoyable. It's a film I would recommend to a lot of people because I think, it's very crowd pleasing, right? It's not a, I wouldn't recommend Nightmare Alley to a lot of people, for instance. But if someone's like, oh, what Oscar movie should I watch? Coda's a safe bet. Right. It is a Hallmark movie that is turned up a little bit and therefore has a little bit more, value in the production design and all that kind of good stuff. But it's a middle of the road movie. That's why it's number 5.
All right, there you go. My number 5 is Drive My Car, and I think that it was fine. It was beautiful.
Yeah,
it was beautiful. It was well done. This is where that tweet that I asked a long time ago when I was trying to come up with my way that I rate films, right?
Right.
Is it a film that I like or a film that I know other people like,
right,
kind of situation? Or I know it is good, but I like trash.
Sure.
And so this is, I think, probably that,
Sure, it's good, but it's not for you.
Right.
Great.
Exactly. It's like the truffles of cinema, right? I mean,
cinema truffles.
That's right.
Coming to Alamo Drafthouse near you.
That's right. My number 4 was King Richard.
So you like that one a little bit more than I did?
I did.
Yeah.
I liked it. I think that I really enjoy learning about history through more narrative pieces.
Sure.
If I can.
Yeah.
Right? So like if Cassius is wanting to know, or one of our kids wants to know about them, or we want them to know about that, I think that I'm more than happy to show them this film and know that it is really well done, know that it touches on a lot of the things that they had to struggle through growing up, and also is entertaining.
Sure, yeah.
I could watch it again, and I thought that everybody did a good job, but I also understand that, as we were watching it, that it is just very linear. There's not a lot of creativity in the way that the story is told.
Right. And not only that, again, it's like you kind of know what the ending is, so there's no real drama or stakes in the movie.
Right.
Yeah. It's a narrative problem that happens with biopics a lot of times. All right. So now we're getting into my number 4. Any of these 4 could win Best Picture, and I would get it. I would be okay with it. It bugs me right now that Coda is getting this late Oscar push. I don't think it's quite that Oscar level contender, but there's a film that sort of everybody just forgot about for some reason.
Okay.
And it's West Side Story. Number 4 is West Side Story.
Okay.
Steven Spielberg is one of our greatest living filmmakers. He makes an absolutely dazzling film here. I don't like musicals.
Right.
And watched this movie and was like, oh, this is actually quite enjoyable.
Sure.
Now, the reason it's 4 instead of any higher is the whole Ansel Elgort of it all, his sort of terrible behavior with women that had been called out prior to this film's release, and also he's not that good of a singer, and so I just didn't particularly like him in that role, and it took me out of the film a little bit.
Yeah, very Ryan Gosling sort of in La La Land,
right?
singing.
And so there was that, and then also, but the other characters, the guy who plays his friend, I forget what the name of the character is, and then the 2 women who the lead and the supporting actress who is nominated, they're fantastic. They're so good. The musical numbers are great. The dancing is fantastic, and the cinematography is perfect. Yanush, who was the DP, should win. I mean, potentially for that. There's a lot of good cinematography, so it's hard to know, but that's a really, really, really strong perspective that he brought to the filming of this, to the lighting and the cinematography. So really liked it, and was surprised that I liked it as much as I did. So number 4. Number 3, The Power of the Dog, which we just talked about in this episode. It's my number 3 film. I think it's currently the odds-on favorite to win Best Picture.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be upset if it did. It's a great, fantastic film. And we just gave all of our, discussion about it, so I'll cut it short. But, really, really like the film. Jane Campion was a masterful director and acted the hell out of by the 4 leads. So.
Okay, I would have thought it would have been higher in your list for you. My number 3, is that where we are?
Yep.
My number 3 is Nightmare Alley.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's high.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I think, again, like the episode that we did on it made me like it more. The interviews that I saw afterward, when I was researching for the episode, and just understanding, I think, a lot of the things that were going on in terms of production and story and the way that they were telling the story, made me like it and appreciate it a lot more than I did just sort of coming out of it.
Yeah, I think that happened to me with Interstellar. like I remember seeing it in theaters and liking it and everything, but then I did the research on it and we watched it again. I was like, this is the best movie ever made.
Yeah.
So number 2.
Number 2 for me is Power of the Dog.
Okay.
I totally get it. In terms of why people like it. I think that we were watching it and it moves pretty quickly. You do feel very uneasy the entire time. She does a very good job of that. It's beautifully shot. We just talked about this for however long, so I don't need to get too much into it, but I understand why it is up for awards. I think that it will win.
Yeah, I
for
think
Best Picture.
I think it probably should, unless they pull the Academy's weird with this stuff, and so Coda is still in play. But it's down between those 2, I think.
Okay.
My number 2 is Drive My Car. It's just a lovely, fantastic movie, deep emotional resonance, and beautifully shot, and I just liked it a whole lot. And I think Jamel Bowie, the New York Times opinion writer, tweeted something. He was like, what a lovely film. I could have watched it for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like similar. It's just a nice little world to inhabit with very deep personal relationships between those 2 characters. And then I guess we tied for number 1.
Do we have the same number
choice.
1?
Yeah, on 3, 2, 1. Dune!
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
I very much enjoyed Dune.
I think we are biased because it was the first film that we had seen in theaters in a year, and we rented a theater, just you and me and a couple of our friends, and we got to bring the baby with us and stuff like that. And so we watched it on the best possible way to see that movie after having not seen movies in theaters for a long time. And so it was great. Loved it.
Yeah, I don't think that was the thing that biased me. Certainly, I read the book, and then I also, after I finished watching the film, or maybe before I started it, I also started re-listening to the book on tape. And it's one of those stories that I really love and I appreciate. And again, sort of similar to Nightmare Alley, I already have a lot of information about it, so I'm not going in going what the fuck was that? You know?
It's also an incredibly difficult book to turn into a compelling film. Just watch the David Lynch version, which is fine, but it's basically a page-by-page retelling.
It's fine? Okay.
It's a thing to watch. But I guess what I'm saying is it's a page-by-page retelling of the book. And in this one, it's they had to actually interpret what's important. How do we add characterization to these people who may not speak it all the time? And how do we tell a larger story about all of what's going on with the use of resources and the wars and stuff, and then how do you make it look great? And they did all of it. They hit it out of the park. It was, and I'm excited for the second one, which has been greenlit.
I am also excited. I loved it. I thought it was beautifully done, beautifully acted. I love the story. I love the script. It's the movie that I would gush over.
Yeah.
Of the list, and I feel like that's the thing that should win. And it's a really big shame that is not the thing that is taken into consideration for an award like this.
It is not being talked about, not being dealt with. It's a lovely film, but it's doesn't quite fit into the Oscar narrative of it all. All the old people who vote for the Oscars are not interested in sandworms.
Well, they should be.
Yeah,
they should be. Did Lord of the Rings, did Return of the King win for Best Picture?
Yes.
So is there a possibility Dune 2 could win for Best Picture?
It's certainly possible. I don't think so.
Okay.
Only because the awards for Return of the King were so focused on the entirety of that trilogy.
Right.
And so it was basically saying like, look, you've done so much
Right.
with these movies. It's time for us to like finally give you all of these awards. They won like 11 Oscars, I think.
So I'm hearing that we need a Dune 3.
We need 3 Dunes. Yeah, I don't know that it was a whole different thing. Like the way that Dune was done seems different than the way Peter Jackson did his, and so it's a little bit different scale. But I mean, look, if you want to do 3, that's great. Do 3.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's it, folks.
That's our order. Thank you guys for listening.
Yes.
Remember to rate, review, and subscribe on your Apple Podcasts app or wherever you are allowed to rate and review and subscribe.
That's right.
Make sure to follow us on Twitter at The Crosscut or on Instagram at The Crosscut Pod.
Yeah, and tell us, come find us, tell us what did you think? Who do you think should have won? Who do you think is going to win? Are they the same thing? Because clearly for me, they are not for either of us.
And also like if you think there are movies that should have been nominated that weren't, or performances that you really liked, tell us. We'd be happy to think about additional movies to cover from last year that we didn't get to. And when we start to talk about the news, for instance, I think that I would have dropped out the last 2, like Don't Look Up and Belfast, and brought in something like The Green Knight or The Tragedy of Macbeth. Like those would have been choices for me. But yeah, what do you guys think? Let us know.
That's right. All right, folks. Thanks so much, and have a great Oscar watching.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.